This episode of The Unstarving Musician is powered by Bandzoogle, helping musicians around the world create professional artist websites. I somewhat recently moved my own artist website over to Bandzoogle. You can see it at robonzo.com. I'm a longtime WordPress user and website designer, so trying a system like Bandzoogle was kind of a big deal to me, but I know that WordPress ain't that easy to learn, and lots of musicians have no interest in learning how to use WordPress, but will try something purported to be easy to use. Well, it doesn't get much easier than Bandzoogle. I've talked about the numerous features they have at the front end of other episodes, but after talking to Dave Kuhl, VP of Business Development with Bandzoogle, I learned about several other features that are especially interesting right now, such as crowdfunding, subscriptions, donations, and all of that without fees added. They also have tools to help you sell merch, tickets to your shows, build your email list, and more. They have support 7 days a week. So look, go to bandzoogle.com to start a 30-day free trial. You can use the promo code ROBONZO to get 15% off your first year. That's bandzoogle.com, promo code ROBONZO, ROBONZO. Let's do the show. Hello, my Looney Tunester friends, and welcome to another episode of The Unstarving Musician. I am your host, Robonzo. On this podcast, I have conversations with independent music artists and industry professionals intended to help indie artists be better at marketing, business, the creative process, and all the other things that empower us to do more of what we love, which is, of course, make music. This episode is powered by the New Music Industry Podcast, hosted by David Andrew Wiebe, who has conversation for independent musicians and music business owners, and features musicians, music industry pros, marketers, entrepreneurs, and business owners. Yours truly was featured in episode 164 of the New Music Industry Podcast, and you can also catch David in an interview on The Unstarving Musician in episode 132. I believe, and I know David would agree, both are value-packed episodes, so be sure to check out the New Music Industry Podcast hosted by David Andrew Wiebe and hear me chat with David in his episode 164. Hey, do you want to help others find this podcast? You can do so by subscribing on Apple Podcasts or wherever you get your favorite podcasts. It really does help. The Unstarving Musician Podcast is made possible through the generosity of listeners like you. One of the easiest ways to offer support is to join the Unstarving Musician community, and you can do so by going to unstarvingmusician.com and join right there on the homepage. As a member, you'll receive from me tips and lessons you can use in your music journey, and this is not just stuff coming from me and my years of experience as a gigging musician, but also from the hundreds of other musicians I've talked to as part of this project and podcast. You'll also get a free copy of the Unstarving Musician's Guide to Getting Paid Gigs ebook, and that is all free just for being part of the community. To learn more about the other ways of offering your support, please visit our sponsor page at unstarvingmusician.com/crowdsponsor. All right, my guest is singer-songwriter Chloe Collins. At 19, Chloe's definitely among the youngest artists I've had featured here on The Unstarving Musician. When I spoke with her, however, I didn't feel like I was speaking to a typical 19-year-old. She comes across as very mature, wise, and professional. She's from New York City, but moved to Nashville in her early to mid-teens to immerse herself in that music scene that is Nashville. She's a seasoned performer already and seasoned recording artist, having played some very noteworthy venues, including the Bluebird Cafe in Nashville, the Opry City Stage, and the Bitter End in New York, and the House of Blues in New Orleans, doing this kind of thing since she was about 15. She reacquainted me with the Nashville scene of co-writing and band assembling. Chloe's now learning how to be a performing artist amidst the pandemic. She has built an amazing social following and community, but she does confess that the whole live streaming thing is new and a bit challenging, and we talk about that. She anticipates that recording is about to become a new challenge for her as well in this new strange world that we're in. It seems to me that she takes every challenge head on, though, with little fear, so I think she's going to do fine. Her latest release, Didn't Want You, is an exploration in new sounds for Chloe, and I can tell she's very into this newness and is hoping to dive deeper with it in future recordings. Oh, and she's a vinyl fan. I love that and really enjoyed talking with her about it. Here's me and Chloe Collins. I think we're ready to roll. Are you?
Awesome. Yeah, I'm ready.
Okay, cool. Yep, looks like we're recording too, so let's do this. So let me ask you first, Chloe, about your vinyl collection. You and I exchanged messages about, and now I'm trying to remember if it was, so I know it was on Instagram, and I'm trying to remember if it was a still or if it was a video, but I saw that you were sitting by a record collection, and I asked you about it. Is that your personal collection? Are you big into vinyl?
I am big into vinyl, yes. My family is very into music as well, so it's kind of a family collection. But yeah, I love, I have Elton John and the Beatles, U2. I have like a huge mix of different artists. But yeah, I have shelves of vinyl. I love it.
That's so nice. I'm envious. I'm what they call an expat, so I moved from the U.S. to Panama. My wife and I did in 2016, and we did the what I call sell the farm. So we just kind of got rid of all of our stuff and came here.
Yeah.
We brought a few things, but my vinyl collection, which wasn't huge, but you know how those things are, it was precious to me. But my vinyl collection, nor my turntable came. But every once in a while, I have a friend who lives where we were in San Jose, who I gave my turntable to, and he every once in a while posts something about some new vinyl he's listening to, so that's kind of nice. But I'm thinking about getting back into it, cool. So I really enjoyed seeing your collection.
Yeah, I love listening to vinyl because I just think it sounds, first of all, 10 times better than just like a little MP3 on my phone, because MP3s are so condensed. And I know streaming is such a big thing now, but sometimes I just like to, put a vinyl on and kind of just listen to it old school.
Yeah, I hear you. It's funny when so I had this vinyl collection forever, and I picked up a turntable. I was without one for a really long time, and so when I got one again and I started listening, I'm like, it does sound better, but I was a little lost on the immense difference that everyone describes. And that may be a product of the sound system I was listening on, or maybe just a product of me not really sitting down and paying attention to the differences, or maybe a product of the way I listen to streaming. But I did, more than anything, I thought the ritual of putting on a record, a vinyl record, and playing it and listening to it was as much or more fun than any sound difference I got out of it, if you know what I mean.
Oh, definitely, yeah, because I know that when I was younger, I used to get CDs, and I would have all my friends come over, and we'd all listen to, the new Taylor Swift record or whatever it was, all together, just sitting on the floor. And that's not really as much of a thing now. I mean, you could do it. You could play it through your phone or whatever, but it's a little bit different. But yeah, I do love that ritual of that. It's kind of just a fun experience that way. So I still love doing that.
Yeah. I hear you. I'm so glad you're into it. And I was happy to hear you're listening to some old stuff too, which I presume is partly the influence of your family.
Yes. My parents played a lot of John Mayer and, again, the Beatles, Beach Boys, all the stuff from kind of their generation. And now I'm in love with it. I'm a huge Stones fan, huge Beatles fan. I listen to Sgt. Pepper all the time. So I love hearing, the roots of how music came to be what it is now, and so hopefully that can kind of influence my writing style a little bit. I hope it does.
Oh, I'm sure. I have no doubt. Friend, I don't know if you've seen this, and it's happened many times before, but a friend of mine did this thing on Facebook to me and nominated me to list 10 albums in 10 days that influenced me the most, and I just put the first one up yesterday, and I reached back into my childhood for, like things I was exposed to. But I was sort of thinking already ahead, like, what am I going to put? And I was thinking about Sgt. Pepper's, and I immediately get sort of wrapped around this idea that, everyone's going to say that's a cliche, but it's true. I really listened to that record a lot when I was young, and it was very interesting. And once in a while, I revisit it. So.
Yeah, and I think the way that it, was just a completely different sound for them is kind of like Pet Sounds for the Beach Boys. It was just so revolutionary at the time because no one had ever heard anything like that. So I think for a lot of people hearing those records for the first time, it was kind of like, whoa, this is next level. So I think that's very true for a lot of people.
I'm guilty of not having explored Pet Sounds. I know I've heard a little bit of it, but I know people think very highly of it. And yeah, I need to check it out. It's going to be funny if you are the one that gets me to check it out just because of that comment you made. So before we started recording, I was asking you about your age and commenting that when I first saw you online, I recognized you were young, but then that I got a message from your PR rep, and there was something in your bio about teenage artists, and I was like, oh wow, and then I'm looking at your history and realizing, okay, you're probably close to 20. You told me before we started you were 19, but I was going to tell you that I think you may be the second youngest artist I've had on. I don't know if you know who Samantha Laporta is, but I had her on way back in episode 24. And I want to say she was like 16 or 17 at the time. But I don't think she's too far behind you in age. It feels like it's been a couple of years since we talked, but I don't know why. I just wanted to tell you that. I thought it would be fun speaking with you today. I speak with a pretty wide range, but it's always fun to speak to a younger person.
Yeah, no, and it's funny. A lot of people think I'm like 25, 26 when they see me because I play a lot of shows at like bars and clubs, but I'm not even allowed in those places. They have to put an X on my hands, and the second I'm done playing, they're like, okay, now you can leave. You got to go.
Oh, that's hilarious. I never played in bars or adult-only venues when I was underage, so I didn't experience it. I was certainly in them when I was underage. I just never performed it. But yeah, that must be kind of strange. Yeah, you have to go now. Do you? So these days, do you have to do that with what do you call it, an adult with you, like a legal guardian or anything?
Yeah.
And is that usually can be someone like on your? Does it have to be a parent, or can it be someone else that's somehow designated as your guardian or whatever?
Yeah, I think it can be anybody, just as long as they're over 18, or 21 or whatever it is. But yeah, usually my parents come to almost all my shows, so they usually are the ones to bring me along to Whiskey Jam or something that I just is definitely not for a 19-year-old, and they're like, okay, fine, you can play the show, but then you gotta leave.
I was going to ask you about Whiskey Jam. Until I was reading about it today, I was unfamiliar with it. I've not spent a lot of time in Nashville, as you gathered from our conversation, I think, before we started recording. But I was asking my younger brother if they had ever been to it, and there was another one that's kind of big. They're like the tour stop. Is that one of the other kind of showcase recurring things? So tell me about the two events and their differences and your experiences with those. Are they fun, and whatever other? Well, I'm sure you don't want to say if they're not fun, but yeah, just tell me about them.
Yeah, so I played both. And Nashville Tour Stop is at Belcourt Caps, and it's every Sunday. And I played that a few times. They always have a great crowd. It is packed out of the room. It's insane. And it's this little tiny room. Like, it's really hard to fit a bunch of people in there. But they're really responsive. They're not just there to drink or anything. They really are there to just sit and listen to the music, which I always appreciate because I've played to a lot of crowds that was not the case. But yeah, I love playing that one, and they're very supportive of new artists. Some people, like when I first played it, I was really nervous because I'd never played it before and I knew it was a big deal. But the crowd was really supportive of me, and that was super cool. And Whiskey Jam is very different. Very, very rowdy. I opened the show once and then I closed the show once, and those were two very different experiences.
I bet.
Yeah, by the end it was a very rowdy crowd.
So what time of day does it start, and what time of day or evening does it normally end?
So it starts around 8 p.m. and then when I closed, it must have been midnight, I think. So
people are good and lubed up, so, as they say, by the end.
Oh, yeah. They give out free shots from the stage. It's kind of insane. But the last time I played there, something really cool happened. Randy Travis was in the audience.
My goodness.
Which was wild. And he called me over after my set. That was the night I closed. And he told me, he was like, keep going in music. Like, you're amazing. And that was just I cried after. I was like, oh my God, Randy Travis just listened to my set. But yeah, that was one of those out-of-body experiences that kind of only happens in Nashville, like Randy Travis randomly showing up to your show.
Yeah. Well, speaking of celeb sightings, I saw that you had a photo with Sheryl Crow, which caught my attention because I'm a big fan and have been for a long time. Tell me about meeting her, just so I can sort of, enjoy the experience through your memories.
Yes. Okay. So I have been to 2 of her shows that were both free, which was, again, such a Nashville thing, just showing up on the street and there's Sheryl Crow. But this was the second show I've been to of hers. She played an acoustic set, I think 4 or 5 songs, and of course it was her, greatest hits. And then she came off the stage, and it was for the Nashville tornado relief. She was selling some of her old clothes and some of her new, her line of clothes, to raise money for the tornado relief. And so I went in, and again, Nashville thing, friend of a friend knew her or was her assistant or had her cousin or something like that. And so I got in and I met her, and I was with my mom, who's a huge fan of Sheryl Crow, and she's been listening to her forever. And yeah, we got a picture with her, and she's the nicest, most normal person. Like, I idolize her, and she was so chill. She was just so laid back. But yeah, I know every word to so many of her songs, and because of my parents, because they used to play her all the time. So that was just such a kind of cool full circle moment that now we are all meeting her finally.
Oh, wow. Yeah, but that was fun. I, one time, my close encounter with her, my wife and I had, I believe it was at the, very close to the time we were waiting to see a show she did at an outdoor winery venue in Saratoga, California, which is in the San Francisco Bay Area. And it's a really lovely outdoor venue, great show. She did a great show, and one of these places, no bad seats in the house, but there is a winery that my wife and I had some affiliation with not too far away, and we came in, and one of the employees who we were friends with had this sort of awestruck look on his face. He goes, "Sheryl Crow was in here earlier today, and I got to talk to her and dance her for a while." So I was like, "Oh man, I just missed her." But anyway, that's fun that you got to meet her, and a nice story of what she was there doing. And I'm glad she's getting into the whole fashion thing. I wondered and didn't know about that. But so another thing I learned about you. By the way, let me back up and mention Amelia Lane from IFP, yes. IF Publicity, Irresistible Force Publicity. I just wanted to say that, but to thank her for introducing us. And how did you get connected with IFP and Amelia?
Yeah, so she DM'd me on Instagram, I think it was. Mm-hmm. And then we started emailing, and she said she loved my music and she'd love to work with me. And so now we've literally only been working together for a week or 2.
No kidding.
We've already gotten a bunch of interviews and things like that. And again, this podcast. And so it was just, yeah, she's great because she's been getting me all kinds of amazing stuff. So shout out to her.
Well, aren't I special low-hanging fruit that she caught me early in the process? I was circling back trying to find the trail where your name first came through my inbox or wherever. I couldn't actually find it, but I feel like it couldn't have been hanging out that long because you said you've been working together a week or 2, but I feel like it was hanging out in my inbox for a while and almost missed, and then I started looking at I was looking at a few artists that day. That's what it was. I think I was going down a sheet of submissions that I had, and I was looking at a few artists, and I found you interesting. I probably listened first to your latest release, which I want to ask you about, but you're definitely interesting, an interesting artist. So the thing I was going to mention that I caught from Amelia and the information that she gave me, which I guess may be all over your social bio stuff, but you had a song that was featured in the 100th episode of a show called Nashville, and you've had songs on other shows including Heartland, Bellevue, and The Vineyard, which I guess is an NBC show. I know a lot of people, a lot of artists would love to do that type of thing, singing, right?
Yes.
How long have you been doing that, and how did that come about for you? And is it stuff you're still pursuing and interested in having be part of the big picture?
Yes, so my first ever sync was actually when I was 13 years old, which is crazy.
Wow.
But that was Vineyard, and it was on ABC Family, and it was a show. Interesting, when I had a song on it, I was kind of too young for the show, so my parents were like, okay, fine, you can listen to your song and then go to bed. Just how when I used to play those venues, they're like, okay, once you're done playing, you have to leave. But I was 13, and I just put my music on every platform available. Like, I used DistroKid, and then it would go to Spotify and SoundCloud and Tidal and any weird, obscure streaming site that anyone could possibly use, so that my music was out there to the biggest, widest audience possible. And from that, I got a bunch of emails from different music supervisors for different TV shows, and they said they wanted to use my music, and that was crazy. So that first one was The Vineyard, and then that kind of opened the door for Heartland, which now I've had 5 songs on, which is insane to think about. And then Nashville was very recently. That was right before it stopped, but that was the 100th episode. So that was kind of special.
So did I understand that right, that you were kind of working that on your own back then, and then you got contacted? Wow. Now, I know you've probably noticed that music changes, the business of music changes really fast, even in the newness of music that you are. But do you think if someone was asking you for advice that you could even, other than tell them how it happened for you, do you think you could give them any tips, or has it probably changed a lot? If someone was like, how can I get my song, what would you say, or would you be a little bit at a loss?
Yeah, I mean, it would be amazing to get music on a TV show, because that's such a great avenue to try. The problem is right now everyone's trying to do that. When I was 13, it was still a thing, but it wasn't as, I feel like, competitive as it is now. At least it didn't feel like it.
Sure.
But yeah, now with Netflix and things like that, there's so many different shows. But that's also kind of good, because now there are so many different shows that you can get your music on. So it's kind of, a balance in that way. And I would say, I don't know if this is the right advice, but I didn't write for sync. I didn't write these songs thinking this is going to get on a TV show, or I want this on a TV show. I just kind of wrote the songs as I would, and did the production, and then they got on these shows later. So yeah, I mean, you could try writing for sync, but I think that is kind of difficult sometimes, because you have to be kind of general in like the way that you phrase things or what you say in the song. And I think just sing what you feel and write what you feel, and the right show will come along if that's what you want. And it'll definitely try that if you're a new artist, because it's also a great thing to put on your resume, to say, hey, I had a song on Nashville, or I had a song on Grey's Anatomy, or whatever it was. It can kind of open that door. People will be a little more interested, because you'll have something that you've done that was kind of a big accomplishment like that.
Yeah, absolutely. And for me, as a podcaster, I was like, all right, this girl's got some mailbox money coming in. People want to know how she did that. So it was good for me to see that you've been doing that. But yes, it is clearly a great thing to have on the resume, as you say. And I've talked to artists who write for sync, and they may do a little of both. But again, everything changes so fast. But you pointed something out, and it's very observant of you. To make the connection, but I've noticed this as well, but I haven't been in the world of syncing. But the landscape of television viewing is changing very rapidly, and it's been expanding and has expanded quite a bit since that time. So I guess that is the bit of encouraging news. But as a former guest I had on many months ago, who's on the management side of the business, said that, or probably would say that this can be a great piece of the whole, the whole picture. Not necessarily, the only thing that you're working on, but I could see that it would be great to just have it as something that you're open to and exploring along with all the other things. But so you were doing all this marketing of yourself. Are you finding now that you're maybe you've gotten to a point of traction where the requests are coming in more than they were? And let's go maybe let's back up to February 2020 or January 2020, because things have changed. But were you finding were you finding that was something you were not able to manage on your own anymore? Has that been the case for a while, or have you still been building your own community and building your own presence online up until that point in time?
Yeah, so I have always, done my own socials and booked my own shows and things like that. And I am doing it on my own still, but it has become harder. It's funny that you bring that up because now I'm at Belmont University and I'm taking classes there full time. And so doing that and then having shows and having to write every single day and still having to keep up with socials and all these different things, it is a lot. But I do love kind of doing it by myself for as long as I can, just because I can. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's kind of cool for me to reach out directly to different gigs and things like that and say, hey, I'm Chloe, I'm a new artist, and I'd love to play your show, because I feel like a lot of people go through their manager or whatever it is, and that's perfectly cool as well. But since I am just doing it by myself, I can just kind of reach out directly and be like, hey, I would love to play your show. Okay, bye. Let me know.
Yeah. Well, and I wonder if, especially, I don't know how much you were booking in Nashville proper, but I wonder if in areas like Nashville, where music is very dense, if it's refreshing to hear from an artist, in some cases, because otherwise they're hearing from artist management. But maybe that's not the case. I don't know. But I could see where it would be enjoyable to be contacted directly by you if I was a venue.
Yeah. I mean, I don't really have a choice either way. So I'm like, hey, this is interesting. Let's try this.
Yeah, sure. So speaking of all the changes, so we were kind of you were trying to, or I was trying to have you think back to January or early February, but what are you doing differently now? And that's a question I've been asking my community, both in the music community and also business community. What are you doing differently now to make your music, to get by creatively and musically, or in the case of businesses, what are you doing now? What are you doing differently to make your business go? So what are you doing differently?
So it was definitely an adjustment at first because in school I would, go to class from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. and then I'd have a write from 2 to 5 or whatever, and then I'd have a show at 7. Almost every single day. It was kind of my schedule. And then I have all this free time and I'm like, what is free time? I don't understand this. So I've been booking a bunch of Facebook live shows and Instagram live shows to kind of get back into that performing thing. I've been doing writes on FaceTime and Zoom with different people. I've been writing solo a lot, which I kind of love doing because co-writing is a huge thing in Nashville, but I still love keeping up that skill of just being able to write by yourself on your bedroom floor. I feel like that's super important because that's how I started, and I feel like that's how everyone started, and to just kind of keep that going. So this time has been really good for that. And yeah, I had like 4 live streams or something like that last week, so that was super cool. Kind of keeping busy with that kind of stuff and just keeping my music out there. I've started doing videos like of that one with the vinyl in it, of, a verse and chorus of a new song, because since I can't play them out, I'm like, hey, people on Instagram, people on Facebook, here's a new song I just wrote, enjoy. Just to kind of keep that content out there, even though this is kind of an insane time.
Yeah. Now, are you doing the co-writes the way you're doing them now and doing the streaming shows the way you're doing them now? Are they still at a point of feeling a little novel, and you're entertaining in that you're kind of figuring them out and they're just different, or are you already experiencing aspects of it that are making you ready to be able to do this the way we were doing it?
I mean, I'm not a great person with technology, so that's definitely a big roadblock for me. Like my first ever Instagram Live, there was no sound for about half of it. And so then I ended up having to use someone else's phone. It was kind of a train wreck. And then Facebook Lives, I logged into the wrong account, and then I was doing it on someone's personal page instead of the radio station page. It was just like a mess. And it was frustrating because I was like, what is happening? I used to just walk up on stage, and here I was, now I have to figure this out on my phone. But I think it is cool that we have this, because then it's something. If we didn't have the technology we have now, we wouldn't be able to write with other people right now, or call people right now, or do live shows or anything like that. So now that I'm getting used to it a little bit better, I'm learning it a little better. I think it's definitely a good way to get my music out there right now. Writing is a little bit strange because you don't get the vibe of the room. Like when you walk into a co-write, you kind of just talk about your day, and then you kind of talk about what's happened to you lately, and then you just start writing a song, and it's very organic. And while that still works, it's kind of weird to do it through a screen, because I'm like, I want to be in the room with you. I want to get that vibe, like that feel for this song. But yeah, I mean, it is kind of on the bright side. It is very cool to do shows from your bedroom. Like, that's very nice. I don't have to go anywhere.
Yeah, that is cool. And so for all, everyone who stresses to no end about doing something with, live streaming, even though everyone's being forced into it for the most part, but for anyone who may still be stressing about it, what was it like for it to be train wreckish? What did you go what did you go through, and how did it end up, just so people can kind of I think experience to experience it through your story. And I think this is good to remind ourselves as we listen to your response here, is that you're very established as a performer, and have done quite well online on social, despite your claim to not be a tech person. And then you start doing the live streaming, and you feel like you're fumbling about and had some funny things happen. So yeah, please tell us what it was like when that happened.
I mean, it was definitely frustrating and a little bit stressful because, completely new to me. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I doing? This is, I'm kind of in over my head with all of this. But the thing is, when I perform live at places, things have happened there too. You break a string, a mic falls down. Someone proposed right before I went on stage once, which was kind of crazy. But like, how do you follow that? Or how do you do a live stream with no sound? Like, it's kind of, you have to kind of work through it, because once I got that thing to work with sound, I was like, oh my God, yay, it's working. And it felt even more of an accomplishment because I had gotten through that and still, made it through the whole show. And yeah, it was definitely frustrating at first, but I feel like now that I've, first of all, learned how to do it with sound, and also it's kind of good to go through that, because if they're all fine, and then, 2 weeks in after you've done a bunch of perfectly fine Instagram lives or whatever it is, you get like some huge technical difficulty and you don't even know how to fix it. And then you're just like, I'm never doing this again. So I think it was good that I went through that, had to be tortured with that, and then got through it, and then it was fine. I was like, look, it can be fine, even though there's difficulties, because it's just like any other show. If something goes wrong, show must go on. You just keep going.
That is a really great way to look at it. I still tell this story today, but to underscore what you said, things happen live too. I'll never forget, years ago, I was at this outdoor festival, like 80,000 seat venue, and this relatively new artist with a huge song is coming on, and they're opening with their huge song, right? And this is a song that has this epic kind of keyboard and soundscape intro before any, vocals or guitars or drums, and then drums come in, next. And this thing's going on and on and on and on. And somebody finally comes out and said, we're all waiting for the drum part to come in, and someone finally comes out and says, "I'm sorry, we're having difficulties with the PA." So
oh, no.
I don't know how many minutes later, 15, 20, half hour, in the sun, the artist just comes out, forget all about the intro, and just came out and started playing the guitar riff where it was supposed, where the guitar riff would have started, and then started singing. But that's all you can do.
Honestly, it is. I mean, I played at a wedding once, and there was no sound on the guitar, so I just had to kind of play it really loudly as I sang. Like, crazy things have happened.
Yeah.
But I feel like the more things like that happen, you can kind of show yourself, hey, look, you've been through worse than like whatever it is that it is now. So, you can get through it. You've been proven to get through things like this, so it'll be fine.
Yeah, I guess it's one of those great moments in life when we can ask ourselves, is this the worst fear that I had today, that this was going to happen? And if you put it in perspective, no, it probably wasn't. So, and if it was, you probably need to seek therapy anyway. So, and that's not a bad thing. And that's not a bad thing.
No problem with that.
Yeah. You've performed a lot of cool venues. I'll mention some that were listed for me and that I recognize, but the Bluebird Cafe in Nashville, the Opry City stage, the Bitter End in New York, and the House of Blues in New Orleans. Those are pretty cool places.
Yeah.
And have those spanned a number of years, or did they happen all kind of recently?
So, yeah, it was definitely a span of a few years, because House of Blues, I was 15, and Bluebird Cafe, the first time, I was also 15. I was talking about this with someone. 15 was apparently a big year for me, because I played like a bunch of different shows like that, and I released my EP that had the song with Nashville that was on the show Nashville. I don't know why. 15 was just like a really good year. But yeah, so I've played the Bluebird more times than that. But I think the first time it was like an open mic, and I stood in line, and it was in the summer, and I didn't even live in Nashville yet. I was just a tourist still, but I knew the Bluebird was so legendary. I was like, I have to play it.
Yeah, well, that's cool. Do you have, when things normalize someday, by the way, I always say this is future me talking to you, but we're recording in mid-April 2020 right now, but so do you have venues kind of near term that you had on your sights that you're hoping to play maybe later this year?
Yeah, I mean, I was playing the Basement a lot in Nashville. That's another one where the crowd is really great because they just sit and listen.
Wow, that's nice.
I miss Nashville. Yeah, it is. I miss Nashville tour stops so much. It's been way too long. Hopefully I will be able to play it again. And Whiskey Jam, same thing. Those are some of my all-time favorites, because I just love an audience that listens. Like, there's nothing better for a songwriter to be able to be like, hey, this is my new song, tell me what you think, and then people actually listen and tell you what they think after. Like, that's so cool to me. But yeah, I miss playing live shows, because that was such a big part of my life. I would play 4 or 5 shows a week in different places, and now that's not happening. So yeah, hopefully when all this goes back to normal, I've got a bunch of shows on my list, and when everything's back to normal, I will post about them on social media and stuff to keep people updated about where I am.
So at shows like at Whiskey Jam and the tour stop, do you typically play with a band, or do you do them solo sometimes?
So Whiskey Jam is usually with a band. The first time I played it was just me, because I'd never been before, so I didn't really know what it was like. So I just played solo with my acoustic guitar, which usually it's full band for everybody, so that was kind of unusual. But yeah, and Nashville Tour Stop is a writer's round, so I usually just do guitar and vocal, but they have a little trio set, like a 30-minute set sometimes at Nashville Tour Stop, which I got to do with the full band. That's fun. I love full band because you kind of get to feed off the energy of the other players. Like I can go to the guitar player and be like, hey, and then kind of dance around with him and then play to the audience, and you get that energy back. And I love playing solo too, but it is kind of just you, so it's all on you. It's a lot of pressure there, but
yeah,
sure. Fun.
Sure. And I know there's a gazillion musicians in Nashville. When you play with the band, do you have a band, or is it kind of a pickup band, as they say in the blues scene, where there's there's people there that you know, new people all the time?
Yeah. I mean, it definitely depends. I love playing with Smith Curry. He co-wrote my new single with me, but he's an incredible steel guitar and dobro player. He's been playing for like forever, and he's just played with everyone. Taylor Swift, you name it. He's played with them. He's so talented. So I play with him a lot. And this girl, Mia Morris, who's 15, which is insane, and she's a drummer, and she's literally the best drummer I've ever heard. She's so good. But yeah, I kind of bring them along as my little trio band when I have trio shows. Sometimes I have Belmont kids if they're scheduling conflicts or something. But the great thing about Nashville is there's musicians everywhere. If my person cancels last minute, I can just call my friend up and they're like, oh, I know a drummer. Oh, I know a bassist. And then you got a band. It's like that easy.
Yeah. I wondered, yeah. Well, it's nice that you have some people that you are your go-to. I guess that is generally the case for anyone I've spoken with that maybe don't have just this one group of guys that they play with. And I've sort of been in both situations, but since starting the podcast, so I've talked to artists within and outside of Nashville who do a lot of different types of shows. So where they, like, I'm thinking of one in particular, a guy named Ray Prim who lives in Austin, Texas, and he does, house concerts, outdoor shows, club venues, and so he might be in sometimes with 6 to 8 musicians, and then other times, 1 or 2 other musicians. And so he was mentioning, he had these various people that he called on and had his go-to people, and so that makes total sense. And I'm sure, like Ray in Austin, you have a lot of people that you can lean on if you can't get the ones that you're originally after. So let's talk about your latest single, Didn't Want You. It sounds to me, going back in your catalog a bit, that you are exploring some new sounds. Tell me about that.
Yes. So I wrote this song with Smith Curry and Tiffany Goss, 2 of my favorite people in Nashville and favorite co-writers. That was such a fun write. But we were just coming up with these kind of strange chords that you don't hear all the time, especially not, in country music. And we went into the studio, and we kind of wanted to, I guess, reflect the emotion of the song in the recording. So that kind of dark, longing feeling, we wanted to reflect that. And so now it's got all those weird, cool, strange, spooky sounds in it. And of course the steel guitar kind of makes it for sure. But yeah, and once I put that out, a lot of people gave me amazing feedback saying, the sound is so refreshing. It's like nothing they've really heard in country recently. And I'm hoping that'll kind of be like my new sound. I can kind of piggyback off of that kind of spooky sound, as I like to call it, a Billie Eilish flair in the country music. But kind of piggyback off of that for my next few singles, because I feel like it kind of also fits my image of like wearing leather jackets and motorcycle boots on stage. And that was something I did anyway, but then my sound was like more roots country, and now it's kind of this pop edgy country sound. So yeah, that was super cool to hear that kind of a finished product. And I think the music video reflected that a little bit as well. So that was super cool.
Yeah, I like it. And I like the early stuff too. And I think every artist hopes that they have such a contrast, unless they're super pure to something they've been trying to do forever, and they're just trying to perfect that, or just for whatever reasons writing on that thing that they've been doing for 4 years. But I like it. It's cool, and
Thank you.
seems to me that just continued exploration of different sounds would be the way to go. I've never asked anybody this before, and I assume the answer is yes, but I don't know. I'm curious. So when you write, for instance, when you wrote with Smith Curry and with Tiffany, do the three of you get songwriting credit for that, or is that sort of discussed ahead of time, or how does it work? And does it vary?
Yeah, no, we all get credit for it, and it's like an equal split. That's like the Nashville way.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so anyone who's in the room who contributes, and it was cool because we were all kind of throwing out different ideas and kind of just came together like puzzle pieces. It was one of the easiest co-writes I've ever done. It's funny. And that ended up being my single, because I've been in writes that go for like 6 or 7 hours and you still are kind of stuck on one idea and you'd never end up finishing anything. And then that song we wrote in like 30 minutes and we said, okay, we're done. Bye.
Nice. Well, I'm sure, and I don't know if those longer sessions apply to these two people, and maybe with Smith Curry in particular, having the depth of experience, I assume, was a plus that in making that go fast.
Yeah, no, and he had those amazing chords that he could come up with, and then we were kind of riffing on different words and different things, and yeah, once we had that kind of melody of why you want the girl that didn't want you, we were like, I think we got this. We can build something around this for sure.
So now that you're exploring writing on your own a bit more, how do you define your process? How are you comfortable putting something together?
Yeah, so I usually come up with a chord progression first when I'm writing it, because I feel like the chords, especially as I learned from Didn't Want You, it can definitely set the mood of the entire song, so that's super important. And I usually have a list of ideas that I can take from.
When you say a list of ideas, are you talking about lyrically or melodically, or both?
Yeah. I mean both, I guess. But yeah, if I'm watching TV and I hear a cool line, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I jot that down in my list of song ideas. But I kind of just pull from that when I'm writing, and in co-writes too, but also when I'm writing alone. And I kind of just build on that idea and use the chords and kind of come up with a melody. Lately, I've been doing chorus first because I feel like the chorus is the most important part. It kind of is the big picture of the whole song, so I definitely want to get that nailed down so I know what I'm saying, and then I can, draw out the story and the details a little bit more later. But yeah, and I still write a lot of solo songs even before the quarantine. I used to write a bunch of songs just in my dorm room because I felt inspired and I was like, I want to write this right now. And then I'll bring something to a co-write tomorrow. But right now I want to do this. And also it was cool with co-writing because I would get inspired from the co-write and then I'd come home and write a song by myself that same day because I was like, I feel so like musically inspired right now. I need to write something.
That's cool. And thank you for mentioning the prompts that you pick up from TV sometimes. Are there other similar types of writing prompts that you might get for lyrics or lines or choruses that you've experienced in the past or pay attention to or are very familiar with and try to stay in touch with?
Yeah, I mean, reading is a big thing for sure. Reading good authors and listening to new songs that people put out. Also just eavesdropping, I think is definitely a good way to do it. Or just in your conversations, or sometimes I'll say something and I don't even realize what I'm saying, but then someone says, oh, that was kind of cool. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to jot that down. Just kind of keeping your antenna up and just listening to everything that everyone says, everything on TV, everything in books. Just think like you're about to write a song all the time because people say cool things sometimes. So it's kind of cool to just listen and, or my friend will be telling me about their breakup or this guy that they fell in love with or whatever it is. And then I keep that in my brain. And then when I'm done seeing them, I go home and I write a song about it. I just
you don't just like say, wait, hold that thought and put it in your phone real quick.
Hold that thought. Just like leave the dinner and go write a song. But yeah, I just love to keep those creative juices flowing all the time. Like, just write something every day. Even if I don't finish a song, I just want to write a line or an idea or something just to keep that always going.
How has recording, I don't know if you've done much since the quarantine started, but how has recording changed? And if you haven't done much yet, how are you seeing it's going to change, assuming that we don't really know when the end isn't going to happen? Not the end, but the end of the quarantine.
Right, exactly. I've seen it a little bit different because I was just in the studio before all this, doing recordings with a studio musicians and things like that to get these songs going because I want to put out a new single. And I know what song it is, and it's pretty much all done. The only thing is we don't have lead vocals. And I have a mic at my house. I don't know how it works with sending files back and forth. And again, not super great with technology, so I don't even know how to do that. I think if this goes on long enough, we'll probably just do something remotely like that. I'll figure out a way to sing to the track and kind of piece it together while we're all in separate places. Because I used to just go into the vocal booth, and I would record vocals with Smith sometimes too. And I'd sing them there, and then someone would sing harmonies, and I would sing my harmonies, and then we kind of piece it together, and then it'd be done. So I guess if this goes on and I want to release something new, I'll probably just sing it here. But yeah, I've found that to be a little bit of something that you can't do completely remotely. Like, there's live streams and there's FaceTime for writing, but this is a little bit different. You kind of got to be in a studio to do it right. So, yeah.
It's funny, you gave me an idea. I'm collaborating with someone right now for a song, and I had to send him my idea, and he asked this guy to play guitar on it, and he actually does a lot of studio work from home. But the idea was, we always assume, all of us, you and I included, that, anything that we find simple to do, everyone knows how to do. But it was the one problem I did not have was figuring out how to, get him files, and he does it all the time, so he has his preferred methods. And I'd been thinking about recording, for instance, drums here in my home. And I already did the original demo was just vocal and acoustic, and then gave it to him to give me improved guitar because I'm not really a guitar player. And so for me, it was not a big deal. And I'm at the moment, I did the demo on GarageBand, and it actually started on my phone. But anyway, I think it would be nice in my case, and maybe in yours, I don't know, but in my case, to just put that stuff maybe in the show notes for this episode, for instance, or somewhere else on my own artist website or on the Unstarving Musician, for people that are like, okay, how do I do this? Or because some people were thinking about maybe getting into recording some stuff or writing some stuff or recording stuff that they've been writing and not recording, or maybe like yourself, they've just been doing it in this go to the studio environment and have never done it from home. So I'm going to do that.
Yeah, no, and especially now is a great time to start learning, new things. I'm kind of practicing my piano a little bit more because I play guitar mainly, but I think, learning how to use Pro Tools or GarageBand or whatever it is, this is the time for that because we have more time now. And I think doing it remotely might be for longer than we expected. So I think it's pretty good to learn how to do, the basics like GarageBand and things like that. And for me, just to get that track, he could send it in an email or something, and then I can put it in GarageBand, sing to it, send it back, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
That might be the new normal for a while.
Yeah, and it would be for me anyway, because I live in Panama and most of my network is in the U.S., in a few different states. But there are other challenges. So I'm a drummer, and I want to actually do some acoustic drums for my own track. And I don't have a studio built out, so I've got this whole project ahead of me of sounding the room and picking up some new audio gear to get a proper demo. And hopefully, actually, I'm very interested in doing. Having my hands in some of the production, which a lot of people would think was stupid, I'm sure, because I have no experience. But hey, it's a great time to learn, isn't it? And plus, my friend,
it is.
Yeah, and my friend has a lot of experience doing that. So no problem. If I suck at it, he's going to be able to help me out. No problem.
He can help you. Yeah, that's always good.
So I know we have to wrap up soon, but I saw I noticed you were very prolific last year in 2019, and you have a decent body of work behind you in singles, the new way. How is this year looking? We're in April now. I know you have some stuff in the pipeline, some new material. How's it looking? What are your plans? What are you going to release?
Yeah, so I'm hoping to release a new single fairly soon. Again, not sure what's going to happen now, but hopefully in a few months or so, release a new song. And then after that, maybe do one. I'm trying to do things every 3 or 4 months. Mm-hmm. It is hard to tell with radio because radio goes a little bit slower than that. So, Didn't Want You is still on the Music Row magazine chart and thing like that, so I don't want to step on that, with a new release. But yeah, I want to get more music out there because I feel like I have so many songs that when people come up to me after a live show, they say, "Oh, I've never heard that song. Is that on Spotify?" And I'm like, no, like I wish it was. I want to put it up there. That's the only reason I'm thinking of maybe doing some kind of EP, because I want to be able to get, 5 songs out there at once so people can just hear them and I don't have to wait so long, because by the time I wait, I have new songs and I want to put those out. And so it's just kind of this like never ending thing because I can't record as fast as I write.
Yeah. Well, may you enjoy the creative process that you're about to be immersed in more than you were before.
Yes, for sure. But yeah, no, I'm hoping to release even more songs this year than last year. So definitely stay tuned for that.
Cool. I'm glad to hear that. And is it the current situation, the whole quarantine that, I got a sense there when you started your answer that almost like, got a sense that you would have possibly had something just about ready to come out now, or maybe already out. Has this slowed you down just because all the figuring out of everything that's happening?
Definitely, yeah. As I said, I have one song that the whole track is done, and the only thing I have to do is a lead vocal, which I wish I could have done somehow sooner. But yeah, it would have come out earlier, I'm guessing. Again, don't want to step on Didn't Want You. Yeah, hopefully when this is over, I will be able to get that figured out. And who knows, maybe I'll be able to successfully do it remotely, and then I can release it even sooner than I thought. So we shall see.
Well, I know you can, and I know you will, and you sound like you have a good depth of experience already that has you think about the timing of it really intelligently, which is great. And man, I wish you the best of luck. I look forward to your new stuff when it comes out. And I want to tell everyone before we wrap up here, as we wrap up, that they can find you at the easiest place, as we were discussing at the top of our conversation, but is at Chloe Collins Music on Instagram and Facebook. And you're also on Twitter. And Chloe, I don't know if that's a traditional spelling, but for anyone who's wondering, it's CHLOE Collins Music on Instagram and Facebook. So Chloe, it's been fun. Thank you for spending time with me.
Yes, thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Hey, thanks again for listening. If you are loving the podcast, please visit unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor to learn about the various ways that you can offer your support. And again, if you're a listener, I consider you a supporter, especially if you shared it with a friend. Thank you. Look for show notes and links to most everything mentioned in this episode at unstarvingmusician.com/podcast. Thanks so much for listening. With a whole lot of gratitude, peace, love, and more cowbell. Hey there, one last thing before you go. At the time of this recording, music artists and other creators are facing unusual and uncertain times. I'd like to help out if I can. My contribution is to offer you an opportunity to work with me in a coaching capacity and to only pay what you can afford if you can afford to pay anything at all. Think of it as a virtual tip jar. The point is, I'm here for you if you feel you need the help. There's a bit of a process, but it's pretty simple. Just go to unstarvingmusician.com/coaching. There's a button on that page to schedule a 15-minute consult call with me. This is just a call to find out how and if I can help you, and it's also an opportunity for you to find out if you want to work with me and for me to find out if I want to work with you. If we both feel good about it, we'll schedule your sessions, and I'll also answer any questions you have about how it works, including the pay what you want or what you can afford tip jar thing. So go to unstarvingmusician.com/coaching to learn more. I'll have a limited number of slots, obviously, so if this sounds like something you can use right now, go to unstarvingmusician.com/coaching to learn more and or to get started. Ciao.